I spent 35 years managing the finances of Fortune 500 companies. I know how to spot a rounding error in a spreadsheet from a mile away. I know that wealth whispers while insecurity screams. But when I met Richard, I didn't look at his balance sheet. I looked at his blue eyes and his tailored Italian suit. He told me he was a venture capitalist. He told me he was closing a $50 million deal in Singapore. He drove a Bentley Continental GT and wore a Patek Philippe watch that cost more than my first house. But the illusion of wealth is fragile. It requires maintenance. And sometimes the cracks appear in the most mundane places. We were supposed to be driving to a romantic weekend in Lake Geneva. He pulled his Bentley into a rundown gas station off I-90. He turned to me, flashing that winning smile, and said, "Babe, my accounts are all frozen because of the merger audit. Can you spot me $200 for gas and snacks? I'll wire you $1,000 when we get there. $200. For gas. A millionaire who doesn't have a $20 bill in his wallet? A tycoon who doesn't have a backup credit card?" I handed him the money. But as he walked into the convenience store, I didn't look at him with love. I looked at him with suspicion. I opened the glove compartment to look for a napkin. Instead, I found a rental agreement from Prestige Exotics Car Rental. He tried to ruin my credit score and steal my dignity. So I decided to ruin him. Thank you for being here. I truly believe this story will help you, or help you save someone else, by recognizing the signs of a scammer. These are things we all need to know. So, this is the perfect moment. Hit the like button and subscribe. You guarantee you won't miss any of the upcoming stories without having to search for them. Now, back to it. Retirement was supposed to be my golden era. I had sold my shares in the firm, paid off my condo on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago, and my portfolio was diversified into municipal bonds and low-risk ETFs. I was 58, fit, wealthy, and incredibly bored. My friends told me to join Luxy, a dating app exclusively for high-net-worth individuals. "It checks tax returns, Diane," my friend Susan said. "You won't find any gold diggers there." That's where I found Richard. Profile name: Richard V. Age: 55. Profession: angel investor. Tech acquisition. Net worth: verified, 10 million plus. His photos were impeccable. Richard on a ski slope in Aspen. Richard shaking hands with what looked like a senator. Richard in a tuxedo, holding a glass of scotch, looking at the camera with a look that said, "I have everything, except you." Our first date was at Alinea, one of the most expensive restaurants in Chicago. He didn't just make a reservation. He claimed to know the chef. "They squeezed us in," he said, guiding me to the best table. "Chef Grant owes me a favor. I helped him structure his expansion capital last year. He ordered for us the tasting menu, the wine pairing. He spoke about market volatility and crypto liquidity pools with the confidence of a man who moved markets. "Diane," he said, leaning in over the dry ice dessert, "it is so rare to meet a woman who understands the burden of success. Most women see the lifestyle, but they don't see the pressure. The late-night calls with Tokyo, the SEC compliance hearings. It's lonely at the top." I nodded, feeling a visceral spark of connection. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. "I understand, Richard," I said, swirling my Pinot Noir. "People think the C-suite is just bonuses and boardrooms. They don't see the ulcers. When I was CFO during the Euro 8 liquidity crisis, I didn't sleep for 3 months. I was living on caffeine and fear." Richard reached across the pristine white tablecloth and covered my hand with his. His skin was warm, his grip firm. "Exactly." He smiled, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made the rest of the restaurant disappear. "We are warriors, Diane, you and I. We stood on the wall while everyone else panicked. We deserve to enjoy the spoils of that war." The waiter arrived to clear the table. The meal had been a theater performance. Edible balloons, scents of burning oak, liquid nitrogen. It was intoxicating. Then, the bill arrived. The leather folio was placed discreetly on the corner of the table. I knew the damage would be significant. Alinea isn't dinner. It's a mortgage payment for some people. Richard didn't even flinch. He didn't open the folder to check the itemized list. He didn't check for errors. He simply reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a card. It wasn't just a credit card. It was a black, anodized titanium American Express Centurion. The black card. The holy grail of consumerism. He dropped it onto the silver tray. It made a distinct, heavy clink, the sound of unlimited purchasing power. "Thank you," he told the waiter, dismissing him with a nod. It was a power move. Total nonchalance. I felt a rush of pride. I was sitting across from a man who treated a $200 dinner like a coffee run. We continued talking about his penthouse renovations for another 10 minutes. I was completely relaxed. But then, the waiter returned. He wasn't walking with the brisk confidence of a server bringing a receipt to sign. He was walking slowly. He looked uncomfortable, clutching the leather folio against his chest like a shield. He leaned down to Richard's ear, whispering so as not to cause a scene. "Sir, I'm terribly sorry." The card was declined. The air left the table. I froze. In my world, a declined card is a mortal sin. It means insolvency. "Declined?" Richard repeated, loud enough for the neighboring table to hear. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked annoyed. "What does the terminal say?" "It says, 'Issuer system error, sir. We tried it twice.'" Richard threw his head back and laughed. It was a relaxed, confident laugh. "Classic Amex?" He shook his head, looking at me with an eye roll. "I was in Dubai last week closing the sovereign fund deal. I bought a watch at the airport, and ever since their fraud algorithm has been hypersensitive. If I buy a stick of gum in Chicago, they think my identity has been stolen." He patted his blazer pockets, then his pants. He frowned. "Damn. I left my domestic wallet in my other jacket, the one at the tailor's." He looked at me. There was zero panic in his eyes, only a warm, apologetic intimacy. "Diane, darling, this is ridiculous. Could you get this? I don't want to spend 20 minutes on the phone with Amex fraud support right now. I'll have my assistant, Sarah, Venmo you the full amount plus a tip first thing in the morning." My CFO brain woke up. Red flag 1. Who leaves a wallet at a tailor? Red flag 2. Why doesn't he have Apple Pay? Red flag 3. Issuer system error usually means insufficient funds or frozen asset, not just travel alert. But I looked at his suit. I looked at the black card sitting on the table. It looked real. And I looked at the waiter, who was waiting for a resolution. If I hesitated, I would embarrass him. If I hesitated, I was saying, "I don't trust you." And I desperately wanted to trust him. "Of course," I said, my voice steady. I reached into my purse and pulled out my Chase Sapphire Reserve. It was heavy, but not titanium. I handed it to the waiter. "Please put it on this one." Richard took my hand and kissed my knuckles. "You're a lifesaver," he whispered, his blue eyes soft. "A true partner. Most women would have made a scene. You just handled it. That's why I like you." The waiter returned. My card worked instantly. I signed the receipt for $1,084.50, including the tip. I smiled at Richard, feeling sophisticated and generous. I didn't know it then, but I hadn't just paid for dinner. I had paid the entrance fee to a circus, and the clown was sitting right in front of me. Over the next 3 weeks, Richard swept me into a whirlwind of luxury. But looking back, it was a very specific kind of luxury. The kind that didn't require him to spend upfront cash. He took me to open houses for $15 million penthouses. "I'm thinking of buying this floor," he told the real estate agent, walking around like he owned the place. "But I need to liquidate some Bitcoin holdings first. The volatility is annoying." He would critique the marble finishes and the view, creating an image of a man with exacting standards. We drank the free champagne provided by the agents. We sat on the staging furniture. It felt like we were shopping for our future home. But whenever we went out for something that required immediate payment, coffee, valet parking, movie tickets, there was always a glitch. "I don't carry cash. It's a security risk," he'd say when the valet asked for $20. "My Apple Pay is linked to the corporate account. I can't use it for personal cinema," he'd apologize. I found myself paying for all the small things. The Ubers, the lunches, the tips. It added up to maybe $500 a week. To me, it was negligible. To him, it was survival. He started talking about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Diane, I'm putting together a bridge loan for a lithium mine in Nevada. High risk, insane reward. I usually only let institutional investors in. Minimum buy-in is $5 million. But since we are close, I could squeeze you in for a smaller tranche. Maybe $50,000. I don't do speculative mining, Richard, I said, my CFO instincts kicking in. I stick to index funds. He looked hurt. It's not speculative. It's guaranteed by the Department of Energy. But fine. I just wanted to share the win with you. He pulled back emotionally for 2 days. He punished me with silence. Then he came back with a grand gesture. Pack your bags, Diane. I'm taking you to Lake Geneva for the weekend. I booked the presidential suite. We are driving up in the Bentley. No talk of business. Just us. I was relieved. He wasn't after my money. He was spending money on me. The presidential suite cost $3,000 a night. If he booked that, he was real. Saturday morning, he pulled up to my condo building in a silver Bentley Continental. It was gorgeous. The leather smelled of success. Hop in, beautiful. He grinned. I put my Louis Vuitton weekender in the trunk. I noticed the trunk was empty. No golf clubs, no emergency kit, just bare carpet. Let's go, I said, feeling the thrill of the road trip. We drove north on I-90. He played classical music. He held my hand. Then, about an hour outside of Chicago, the fuel light pinged. Ah, damn, he muttered. I forgot to fill up the beast. He pulled off the highway into a dusty, generic gas station. Not a nice travel center, but one of those places with flickering lights and bars on the windows. He turned off the engine. He turned to me. The charm was still there, but his eyes were darting around. Babe, this is embarrassing. My cards are still locked from that merger I told you about. I have to go to the bank on Monday to sort it out physically. Do you have cash? I have a credit card, I said. No. The card reader on the pump looks sketchy. He lied smoothly. I don't want your data skimmed. Do you have cash? Or can you go inside and pay? I need about $200. $200? I asked. Richard, a tank of gas is $80. What do you need $200 for? I need premium fuel. And I need to get some snacks, maybe some oil. Look, just give me the cash, Diane. Why do you always question the numbers? It's $200. I'm worth $40 million. His voice raised a decibel. It was the first time he had snapped at me. Did you notice the tactic? He inflated the amount, and when questioned, he attacked the victim, calling her stingy. This is classic manipulation, making you feel bad for questioning the absurdity. If you've ever been through this, you know exactly how it hurts. I stared at him. The man who claimed to be buying a lithium mine was shouting at me over gas money. Fine, I said, my voice cool. I opened my purse. I didn't have $200 in cash. I had $60. I have $60. That will get us to the hotel. He snatched the bills from my hand. Whatever. I'll get the rest on a credit card inside. Hope it doesn't decline. He slammed the heavy door of the Bentley and stalked toward the convenience store. I sat in the silence of the luxury car. The engine ticked as it cooled. Something felt wrong. The sketchy card reader excuse was nonsense. Gas pumps are secure. He just wanted cash. Why? Because you can buy lottery tickets with cash. You can buy cigarettes. You can pocket the change. I looked around the car interior. It was clean. Too clean. There were no personal items, no sunglasses in the visor, no charging cables that looked used. My eyes landed on the glove compartment. Richard was inside the store, arguing with the cashier. I had maybe 2 minutes. I pressed the button. The glove box fell open. Inside, there was a manual in a leather pouch, and underneath it, a yellow carbon copy paper. I pulled it out. Prestige Exotics Rental Agreement Vehicle, 2022, Bentley Continental GT. Renter, Gary R. Miller. Wait, his name was Richard Vance. Rate, $899, day plus. Insurance return. Date, Sunday, 10 chart a.m. The renter's name wasn't Richard. It was Gary. And the address listed for the renter wasn't a penthouse in the Gold Coast. It was an apartment complex in Cicero, a working-class suburb. My hands started to shake. I looked closer at the document. Payment method. Prepaid debit card. A prepaid card. The kind drug dealers and people with bad credit use. Richard didn't have an Amex Centurion. He had a prepaid Visa from Walgreens. I looked out the window. Richard was walking back to the car, holding a bag of chips and a Red Bull. He was smiling again, the mask back in place. He didn't know I had the paper in my hand. He didn't know the date was over. So I decided to check his background online, right there, in the passenger seat, while he pumped the gas. I pulled out my phone. I didn't search for Richard Vance. I searched for the name on the rental agreement, Gary Miller Cicero IL. The first result was a LinkedIn profile for a Gary Miller freelance IT consultant. No mention of venture capital, no mention of millions. The second result was a public court record from Cook County. Gary Miller versus landlord. Eviction notice filed 3 months ago for unpaid rent of $1,200. He was being evicted for $1,200, the exact amount I paid for dinner at a Linnea. The pieces slammed together, the frozen accounts, the card error, the refusal to spend small amounts. He wasn't a millionaire. He was broke. He was renting this car with the last of his money, or maybe another victim's money, to impress me, get me to the hotel, and likely pitch me the $50,000 investment again. He opened the car door. "All set, babe," he chirped, tossing the chips onto the dashboard. "Ready to live the high life?" I looked at him. I looked at the man who was essentially homeless, wearing a fake suit, driving a rented car he couldn't afford, asking me for gas money. I folded the rental agreement and slipped it into my purse. "I'm ready," I said. I wasn't going to confront him yet. We were an hour away from the city. I was in a car with a desperate man. I needed a plan. I smiled at him as he merged back onto the highway. "Richard," I said sweetly, "I was thinking about that mining investment. Tell me more about the wire transfer details. I might be able to move some funds tonight." His eyes lit up. Greed is a blinder. He didn't see the shark swimming next to him. But what he didn't know was that I wasn't wiring money to him. I was wiring a trap. The road to Lake Geneva is scenic, lined with tall pines and glimpses of the water. Usually, I find it relaxing. Today, it felt like a transport mission. I sat in the passenger seat of the rented Bentley, clutching my purse. Inside, the yellow rental agreement burned a hole in my mind. Gary Miller, Cicero, eviction. "Richard," I said, keeping my voice light, devoid of the disgust I felt. "If I'm going to wire that $50,000 for the lithium deal on Monday, I need to understand the structure. Is it a direct equity buy-in or a convertible note?" He blinked. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. It's equity. Direct. You get shares." "Great," I said. "And what's the vesting period? Is there a lockup?" "No lockup," he said quickly. Too quickly. "You can sell whenever. It's totally liquid." I suppressed a smirk. A private equity deal in a mining operation with zero lockup period and total liquidity? That didn't exist. It was financial gibberish. He was just saying words he thought sounded good. "That's incredible," I said. "And the entity? Is it a Delaware LLC or a Nevada C Corp?" "Nevada," he said, confident now. "Tax benefits. Perfect. Send me the EIN and the operating agreement when we get to the hotel. I'll need to run it by my tax guy." "Your tax guy?" He glanced at me, sweat forming on his temple despite the car's AC. "Diane, baby, we need to move fast. If lawyers get involved, we miss the window. The Department of Energy closes the round on Tuesday." "Don't worry," I touched his arm. "My tax guy is fast. Just get me the routing number." I was cornering him. By asking for specific documents, EIN operating agreement, I was forcing him to either admit he didn't have them or forge them. And forgery takes time. He turned up the radio. "Let's not talk shop anymore. Let's focus on us." He was deflecting. He wanted to get to the hotel, get me drunk on overpriced wine that I would pay for, and pressure me into a handshake deal or a direct transfer to a personal account. I looked at his watch, the Patek Philippe Nautilus. It looked heavy, but now that I looked closer, the second hand, it was ticking. A real mechanical Patek glides. It has a sweeping motion. A cheap quartz replica ticks. Tick, tick, tick. Another fake. Just like the suit, which I noticed had a loose thread on the cuff. Just like the car. Just like him. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a notification from my bank app. Alert, card not present transaction attempt. 0.00. Test. He must have tried to use my card number somewhere earlier, or maybe he was trying to link it to his Apple Pay while I wasn't looking. No, my card was in my wallet. Then I realized. The gas station. When I handed him the cash, I had also handed him my card for a split second before taking it back to check for cash. Had he taken a photo of it? Richard? I asked. Did you manage to pay for the gas with the cash I gave you? Yeah. He smiled. Kept the change for the valet. He was lying. The gas cost $80. I gave him $60. He had to put the rest on something. I checked my bank app again. No charges yet. But I locked my card instantly with a tap of my thumb. Card frozen. If he tried to use it later, he was in for a surprise. That moment when the aggressor realizes he lost not just his freedom, but the money he stole, that is priceless. If you feel cleansed watching this empire of lies crumble, comment justice down below. We pulled up to the Grand Geneva Resort. It was magnificent. Valets in crisp uniforms rushed to the car. Mr. Vance, the lead valet greeted him. They clearly didn't know him, but the Bentley commanded respect. Keep it close, fellas, Gary Richard said, tossing them the keys with an arrogance that made my skin crawl. I might need to make a run later. We walked into the lobby. High ceilings, chandeliers, the smell of fresh lilies. I'll handle check-in, babe, he said. Why don't you go to the bar and order us a bottle of Dom? No, I said, hooking my arm through his. I'll stay with you. I want to see the suite. I wasn't letting him out of my sight, and I wanted to see exactly how he planned to pay for a $3,000 suite with a declined card and $60 in cash. He approached the reception desk. The receptionist smiled. Welcome, Mr. Vance. We have the presidential suite prepared for you. 2 nights? That's right, he said, puffing out his chest. Excellent. May I have a credit card for the room and incidentals? The total authorized amount will be $7,500. 7,500. I felt him stiffen next to me. He reached into his wallet and pulled out the black card, the fake Amex or the prepaid one. I couldn't tell from the back. He handed it over with a flourish. The receptionist swiped it. She waited. She frowned. She swiped it again. I'm sorry, Mr. Vance. It's declining. That's impossible, he barked. Run it again. It's a Centurion card. It has no limit. The system is rejecting it, sir. Issuer decline. He put on a show. He huffed. He checked his phone. Unbelievable. My assistant must have put the travel lock on the wrong card. Hold on. He pulled out another card. A blue Visa. Declined. He pulled out a third card. A generic debit card. Insufficient funds. The receptionist whispered discreetly, trying to spare him embarrassment. People in the line behind us were starting to stare. The illusion was shattering. The millionaire couldn't pay for his room. He turned to me, his face red, sweat beading on his upper lip. Diane, this is humiliating. The bank merger. Everything is frozen until Monday morning. Can you put it on your card? I'll wire you $10,000 on Monday to cover the hassle. Please. His eyes were pleading. Not arrogant anymore. Desperate. He was terrified I would walk away and leave him stranded there with the bill and no car, since the valet ticket was in his name, but he couldn't pay for the parking. I had a choice. Leave him there and take an Uber home? Or pay, go up to the room, and get the evidence I needed to put him away for good. If I left now, he would just disappear. He would find another victim. He would run back to Cicero. It's okay, honey, I said, loud enough for the people behind us to hear. I know how stressful the merger is. I pulled out my Chase Sapphire, which I unlocked under the desk for 30 seconds. Here, I told the receptionist. Gary exhaled. It was the sound of a man who just escaped the guillotine. You're the best, he whispered. I'm going to make this the best weekend of your life. We got the keys. We walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, trapping us inside, I looked at him. He wasn't Richard the Tycoon. He was Gary the Leech, and he was staying in a $3,000 suite on my dime. But he made a mistake. I need to use the bathroom as soon as we get in, he said, clutching his stomach. The stress was getting to him. Go ahead, I said. I'll unpack. As soon as we entered the suite, which was admittedly stunning, he ran for the master bath. He left his blazer on the couch, and in the inside pocket of the blazer, I saw the outline of his phone. He had left his phone. I heard the shower turn on. I had maybe 10 minutes. I walked over to the jacket. My heart was pounding louder than the rain against the window. I pulled out the phone. It was an older iPhone with a cracked screen. Another detail that didn't match the millionaire persona. It was locked. 6-digit passcode. But I remembered something. When we were in the car, and he was entering the GPS destination, I watched his thumb. 258000. The vertical line down the keypad. The lazy man's code. I typed it in. 258000. The phone unlocked, and what I saw on the screen wasn't an investment portfolio. It was a script. A literal script titled The Whale, Diane Protocol. The bathroom door was closed, the shower hissing like a snake behind it. I stood in the middle of the luxury suite, clutching the cracked iPhone. I opened the document titled The Whale, Diane Protocol. It wasn't just notes. It was a dossier. My stomach churned as I scrolled. Target, Diane. Last name. Profile, 58. Widow, retired CFO. Vulnerability, intellectual vanity. She thinks she's smarter than everyone. Feed her ego. Ask for her advice on complex deals. Trigger. Loneliness masked as independence. Use the power couple narrative. Financials. ST35 Bemir liquid. The hook. Lithium mining deal. Energy depth angle plays to her corporate background. The close. Get the $50K seed money by weekend. Claim liquidity crisis. I felt like I was going to throw up. Every compliment he had paid me. Every time he asked for my opinion on the market. It was all scripted. Intellectual vanity. He was mocking me. He knew I prided myself on being smart, so he used that against me. But it got worse. I opened his WhatsApp. There was a pinned chat with a contact named Coach K. Gary, 10:15 a.m. She's asking too many questions about the vesting schedule. She's a CFO, man. She's tough. Coach K. Don't let her think. Confusion is key. Create a crisis. Make her solve it. Did you pull the gas station move? Gary. Yeah, she paid. But she looked suspicious. I need to close the big one fast. Coach K. Get her to the hotel, get her drunk, use the sex angle. Once she wires the $50K, ghost her. We move to the next city. Ghost her. He planned to sleep with me, take my $50,000, and leave me stranded in Lake Geneva on Monday morning. My hand was shaking so hard the screen blurred. I wanted to burst into that bathroom and scream. I wanted to smash the phone against the marble wall. I wanted to call the police right now and have him dragged out naked. But then I looked at the mirror. I saw my reflection. I was Diane. I had navigated hostile takeovers. I had fired executives who stole from the company. I didn't scream. I executed. If I confronted him now, what would happen? It was a civil matter. He borrowed money. I gave it. He hadn't stolen the $50,000 yet. He would walk away. He would block me. He would laugh about the old lady with his Coach K. No, I needed him to commit a felony. Or I needed to destroy his world so thoroughly that he would never dare target a woman like me again. I quickly forwarded the Diane Protocol document to my own email. I took screenshots of the chat with Coach K. I sent everything to my cloud. Then I wiped the sent folder on his phone. I checked the time. The shower water stopped. I had seconds. I placed the phone back in his jacket pocket, exactly how I found it. I walked over to the minibar. My hands were steady now. Ice cold. I popped the cork on a bottle of champagne, charged to my card, of course. When the bathroom door opened, I was standing by the window, looking out at the lake, holding 2 glasses. Reading the script of your own manipulation is a violation that goes way beyond money. It is a profound emotional betrayal. But Diane did what few manage to do. She swallowed her tears and activated war mode. What would you do? Would you scream or would you plan? Gary walked out wrapped in a towel. He looked refreshed. The stress of the declined cards at the lobby seemed to have washed off. He saw me with the champagne and grinned. "Now this is what I'm talking about," he purred, walking over. "To us, Diane. To the power couple." He reached for a glass. I handed it to him. I smiled. It was the best acting performance of my life. "To us, Richard. And to the lithium deal." His eyes lit up. "You're in?" "I was thinking about it while you showered." I lied smoothly. "You're right. I've been too conservative with my portfolio. I need a high-yield asset. And if the Department of Energy is involved, it's a no-brainer." He took a long sip of champagne. "That's my girl. Smart. Decisive. But," I added, stepping away slightly so he couldn't touch me, "I can't do $50,000. His face fell instantly. "What? Why?" "Because for a deal this good, $50,000 is insulting," I said, watching his pupils dilate. "If I'm going in, I want a full tranche. I want to put in $200,000. That gives me a board seat, right? $200,000. I saw the greed wash over him like a wave. He practically vibrated. $50,000 was a good score. $200,000 was a jackpot. It would impress Coach K. It would pay off his debts in Cicero. 200, he stammered, then recovered. Yes, absolutely. For $200K, I can get you a board observer seat, but we need to move the funds fast. The round closes Tuesday. I can wire it tonight, I said. My private banking portal is open 24/7 for transactions under $1 million. Tonight? He choked on his champagne. That's perfect. I just need the wiring instructions, I said. Do you have them handy? Or do I need to call your assistant? No, I have them on my phone, he said, scrambling toward his jacket. He pulled out the cracked iPhone. He didn't know I had just rated it. He tapped furiously. Here, he said. I'll text it to you. Ding. My phone buzzed. Beneficiary. Titanium Holdings, LLC. Bank. Green Dot Bank. Routing. Number. Account. Number Green Dot Bank. It's an online bank often used for prepaid accounts. Titanium Holdings, LLC sounded fake. But now I had the account number. Excellent, I said. I'm logging in now. I opened my laptop. I wasn't logging into my bank. I was logging into a different kind of portal. My son Mark works in cybersecurity for a major fintech firm in Chicago. We have a good relationship. I opened a secure chat window. Mom. Mark? Are you online? Urgent. Mark. Yeah, everything okay? Mom. I need you to run a tracer on a Green Dot account number. I think I'm sitting across from a felon. Mark. What? Mom, call the police. Mom. Not yet. I want to know where the money goes. If I send a $1. EUA0 tracer. Can you track the cash out? Mark. If he moves it to crypto, yes. Give me the number. I typed in Gary's Titanium Holdings account number. Is the Wi-Fi slow, babe? Gary asked, hovering over my shoulder. Just security protocols, I said, closing the laptop lid slightly. It takes a few minutes to authorize a new beneficiary. Why don't you get dressed? We have a dinner reservation. He looked torn. He wanted to watch me press send, but he also wanted to celebrate. Okay, I'll get ready. But Diane, once this goes through, our lives are going to change. Oh, I know, I muttered. They certainly are. While he was putting on his fake suit, Mark messaged back. Mark, Mom, this account is flagged. It's a mule account associated with a ring operating out of Nigeria and Chicago. If you send money there, it gets converted to Bitcoin within 10 minutes. Do not send anything. Mom, I won't. But I need to keep him here until tomorrow. Can you find out who owns Titanium Holdings? Mark, it's registered to a P.O. box in Cicero, IL. Registered agent, Gary Miller. Got him. The LLC was in his real name. He was sloppy. I had enough to go to the police, but I was stuck in a hotel room with him. If I called 911 now, they might not arrive for 20 minutes. He could get violent. I needed to neutralize him. I needed to leave him stranded. Richard, I called out. Bad news. He rushed out, shirt half buttoned. What? Did the wire fail? The bank flagged it. I lied. Because it's a new recipient. They need verbal confirmation. I have to call them in the morning when the fraud department opens. His face twisted in anger. You said you had a private banker. You said 24/7. I do, I said calmly. But fraud protection is automated. There's nothing I can do until 8 a.m. He paced the room. He was furious. He was so close to the money. Fine, he snapped. 8 a.m., sharp. Let's go to dinner, I said. I'm starving. We went to the hotel steakhouse. He ordered the most expensive Wagyu steak, $180, and a bottle of cab, $180, and a bottle of cab, $180, and a bottle of cab, $250. He ate voraciously. He drank heavily. He was celebrating the money he didn't have yet. I watched him eat. I sipped my water. I realized something. He had no money. None. He couldn't pay for the gas. He couldn't pay for the room. He definitely couldn't pay for this dinner. He was banking entirely on my credit card being on file for the room, or me picking up the check. I signaled the waiter. Excuse me, I whispered when Gary went to the bathroom, again. I'd like to split the check. The waiter looked surprised. Split it, ma'am? Yes. Put my salad and my water on my card. And put the gentleman's Wagyu, the wine, and the appetizers on a separate check. Bring it to him. The waiter nodded. Of course. When Gary came back, he was stumbling a bit. The wine had hit him. To us, he toasted again, raising an empty glass. Tomorrow we are rich. Tomorrow, I agreed. The waiter arrived. He placed a small folder in front of me and a much thicker folder in front of Gary. Gary looked confused. What is this? The bill, sir. Put it on the room. Gary waved his hand dismissively. I'm afraid the room requires a credit card authorization for incidentals that exceeds the current limit, sir, the waiter said. I had stopped at the front desk earlier while he was parking the car and lowered my authorization limit on the room to cover only the room rate, not dining. We need to settle dinner now. Gary stared at the bill. $540. He looked at me. Babe, just get this. I'll add it to the wire tomorrow. I looked at him. The CFO Diane came out. No, Richard. I don't think I will. The silence at the table was deafening. Excuse me? He whispered. I paid for dinner last time, and lunch, and the gas, and the hotel deposit. In my business, we call this overextended. You enjoyed the steak. You pay for it. I stood up. I placed my signed receipt for $35 on the table. I'm going to bed. Don't stay up too late. I walked away. I didn't look back, but I heard the panic in his voice as he started arguing with the waiter. He was stuck. He couldn't pay. The police would be called for theft of services if he didn't pony up. I went up to the room. I packed my bag. I wasn't staying. I took the elevator down to the parking garage. I found the Bentley. I had the keys. He gave them to the valet. But I had retrieved them saying I needed my charger. I looked at the car. I wasn't going to steal it. That would make me a criminal. But I was going to make sure he couldn't leave. I opened the trunk. I took out his bag, a cheap gym bag that didn't match the luxury image. I left it on the concrete floor. Then, I did something petty. I locked the keys inside the car. And then I called a different kind of service. Not the police, not yet. I called the rental company, Prestige Exotics. Hi, I'm calling to report a stolen vehicle. I believe your Bentley is being used in the commission of a felony in Lake Geneva. By the time Gary figured out how to pay for his steak, probably by calling Coach K for an emergency loan, his ride would be gone. I didn't leave the hotel immediately. I wanted to see it. Call it petty, call it vindictive, but after he spent weeks trying to extract $50,000 from my retirement, I felt I was owed a show. I sat in a high-backed armchair in the lobby lounge, positioned behind a large potted palm. I had a clear view of the steakhouse entrance and the elevators. I ordered a pot of chamomile tea. My hands were steady. 10 minutes passed. Then I heard voices raising. The manager of the steakhouse walked out, looking stern. Behind him was Gary. Gary looked frantic. He was sweating through his dress shirt. He was waving his phone in the air. My assistant is wiring the funds right now, Gary shouted, his voice cracking. Do you know who I am? I'm closing a merger with the Department of Energy. Sir, the manager said, his voice level but loud enough to carry. Your card was declined 5 times. Your guest has left. Unless you can produce a valid form of payment for the 540 bill, I am legally required to call the sheriff for theft of services." "Theft?" Gary laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound. "It's a misunderstanding. Just charge it to the room." "The room has no credit authorization, sir." The card on file for incidentals was removed. I had done that at the front desk before dinner, claiming I lost my card and would provide a new one in the morning. Gary turned pale. He realized he was trapped. He looked around the lobby, scanning for me. "Diane!" he screamed. "Diane, where are you?" He looked pathetic. The millionaire tycoon was reduced to a man shouting at a hotel manager over a steak dinner. Guests were staring. Phones were out, recording. He tried to run toward the elevators, presumably to get his things and flee. "Security!" the manager called out. Two burly men in suits stepped in front of the elevator bank. "Sir, we need you to settle the bill." Gary backed away. He was cornered. He pulled out his phone and started dialing frantically. I knew who he was calling. Coach K. He was probably begging for a quick transfer to his Cash App to pay the bill, but Coach K doesn't help pawns who get caught. Coach K cuts loose ends. It's fascinating to watch the arrogance disappear when the card is declined, isn't it? He screamed at Diane at the gas station over $200. Now he's about to be arrested over $540. Karma doesn't miss, it just accrues interest. While Gary was stalling the hotel staff, flashing his fake Patek Philippe and offering to leave it as collateral, which the manager wisely refused, probably recognizing it was a fake. Flashing lights appeared in the circular driveway outside. It wasn't just one police car. It was two. And behind them, a tow truck with Prestige Exotics emblazoned on the side. My call to the rental agency had worked faster than I expected. When you tell a luxury rental company their $200,000 asset is being used in a felony, they don't send an email, they send a recovery team. The automatic doors slid open. Two sheriff's deputies walked in, flanked by a guy in a mechanic's jumpsuit holding a clipboard. "We're looking for the renter of a silver Bentley Continental," the mechanic announced to the front desk. "GPS shows it's parked in your structure. We have a kill switch activation order." The hotel manager pointed at Gary. "That's the gentleman with the vehicle. We are also detaining him for unpaid services." Gary saw the cops. The fight went out of him. His shoulders slumped. He looked like a deflated balloon. He realized the game was over. The merger, the lithium mine, the penthouse, it all evaporated in the harsh fluorescent light of the lobby. He made one last desperate move. He lunged for the side exit door, the one leading to the gardens. "Hey!" a deputy shouted. Gary didn't make it 3 steps. He tripped over his own expensive, fake Italian loafers and face-planted onto the carpet. The deputies were on him in seconds. "Stop fighting! Hands behind your back!" I watched as they cuffed him. I watched as they patted him down. They pulled out his wallet, the one with the prepaid cards. They pulled out the fake car key. And then, his phone rang. It fell out of his pocket onto the floor. The screen lit up. Caller ID, Diane. The whale. It wasn't me calling. I was sitting right there. It was him realizing he needed me to bail him out. He had probably tried to speed dial me as he fell. I stood up from my chair. I picked up my purse. I walked over to where the deputies were hoisting him up. "Officer?" I said calmly. Gary looked up. His nose was bleeding. His eyes went wide. "Diane! Baby! Tell them! Tell them about the wire transfer. Tell them who I am." The deputy looked at me. "Do you know this man, ma'am?" I looked at Gary. I looked at the man who planned to ghost me on Monday. "No," I said. "I don't know who this is. He told me his name was Richard Vance, but I believe his rental agreement says Gary Miller." "Diane!" Gary screamed. "The 200,000! You promised!" I leaned in closer, just enough so he could hear me over the lobby noise. "There is no $200,000, Gary, and the Department of Energy doesn't do business with men who can't pay for gas. Did you enjoy the Wagyu?" His face twisted in pure hatred. "You bitch! You set me up. I audited you," I corrected him. "And you failed." They dragged him out. As he passed the glass doors, I saw the tow truck driver hooking up the Bentley. The car he loved more than any woman was being repossessed in front of a crowd of tourists. I walked up to the front desk. The receptionist looked shaken. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Last name," she stammered. "We didn't know." "It's not your fault," I said. "He fooled a lot of people." "What about the bill?" the manager asked gently. "Technically, I'll pay my portion," I said. "The salad and the tea. But the steak and the wine? That's on Gary. You can add it to his police report as restitution." I paid my $45 tab. I walked out to the valet stand. I called an Uber Black. I wasn't driving back in a Bentley, but a Suburban with a quiet driver felt like the ultimate luxury right now. As the car pulled away, driving past the squad cars, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Gary's number. The police must not have seized it yet, or he had a second burner. "Gary, you think you won? Coach K knows who you are. He has your address. You better send that money or else." He was still trying. Even in handcuffs, the scammer instinct to threaten and intimidate was alive. But he forgot one thing. I had forwarded his protocol to myself. I had the screenshots. I replied one last time. "Me. I forwarded your chat logs with Coach K to the FBI Cybercrimes Division about 20 minutes ago. And I sent the rental agreement to your parole officer in Cicero. Yes, I found him too. Enjoy prison, Gary. I hear the commissary doesn't accept Amex." I blocked the number. I thought the nightmare was over. I had won. I was safe. But when I got back to my condo in Chicago, the doorman stopped me. "Ms. Diane," he said, looking concerned, "a man was here looking for you about an hour ago. He said he was your financial advisor. He left a package." Gary was in jail. So who was the man? Coach K wasn't just a voice in a chat app. He was real. And he was in Chicago. The package on my kitchen counter was wrapped in brown butcher paper. No return address. Just my name, handwritten in block letters. The doorman had said, "Your financial advisor left it." I didn't have a financial advisor who made house calls. I put on latex cleaning gloves, a habit from watching too many crime shows, perhaps, but prudent. I cut the tape. Inside, there was no bomb. There was a black velvet jewelry box and a single sheet of paper. I opened the box. Inside was a cheap plastic charm bracelet, the kind you buy at a dollar store. It was mocking me. "Look at the trinkets you fall for." But the paper made my breath hitch. It was a printout of a LinkedIn profile. Mark, last name, Senior Cybersecurity Analyst, Chicago. My son. Across the photo of my son's smiling face, someone had written in red marker, "The debt transfers to the next of kin. You cost us $200K potential. Pay the cancellation fee of $50K in Bitcoin by Friday, or we pay Mark a visit at his office." Fear is a cold emotion. It starts in the stomach and paralyzes the limbs. For 10 seconds, I was terrified. Coach K wasn't just a voice in a chat log. He was a stalker who knew where my children worked. But then, the fear hit the bedrock of my personality, my maternal instinct, and it ignited into a white-hot fury. They could have stolen my money. They could have stolen my dignity. I would have survived. But threatening my son? They had just declared war on the wrong mother. I stared at the phone. My thumb hovered over the 911 button. But my years in corporate management taught me about risk assessment and response times. I knew exactly what would happen if I called the police. A uniformed officer would arrive in 45 minutes. He would stand in my foyer, notebook in hand, looking bored. He would file a report for harassment. He might promise to send a patrol car to drive past Mark's office building once or twice. That wasn't protection. That was bureaucracy. And bureaucracy doesn't stop a predator who knows your son's work address. I put the phone down. The police were a shield, and a slow one at that. I didn't need a shield. I needed a sword. I needed this threat eliminated at the source, and I needed it done tonight. I picked up my phone again and dialed Mark. The ringtone buzzed 3 times. An eternity. "Mom?" he answered. I could hear the clatter of a keyboard in the background. He was safe. He was normal. "Everything okay? You never call in the middle of the workday." I took a breath, pushing down the panic and replacing it with the cold, hard resolve I used to use during hostile takeovers. "Mark, stop typing. Listen to me very carefully. The keyboard noise stopped instantly. He heard the steel in my voice. Okay, I'm listening. I need you to leave the office, right now. Fake a migraine, tell them you're sick, I don't care. Come to my condo immediately. I paused, making sure I was clear. And Mark, bring the other laptop. The unmarked one. The one you used for your gray hat consulting. There was a heavy silence on the line. Mark knew I never spoke about his side projects. The ethical hacking, the penetration testing, the things that operated in the legal gray areas of cybersecurity. For me to ask for that specific machine meant the world had tilted off its axis. Mom, his voice dropped an octave, all casualness gone. You're scaring me. Is this about a bank account? What happened? I looked down at the paper on my counter. I looked at the red marker slashing across my son's smiling face. No, it's not about money anymore. Someone threatened the family, Mark. They threatened you. I gripped the phone until my knuckles turned white. I don't want to report them. I don't want to block them. I need you to help me hunt them down. They crossed the red line. Money we can recover, but family? Family is sacred. If you would also turn into a beast if someone touched your children, hit the like button right now. Diane is going to show no mercy. Mark arrived in 20 minutes. When I showed him the letter, his face didn't show fear. It showed the cold calculation of a professional. Coach K, Mark muttered, scanning the red text. Classic intimidation. They know Gary is burned, so they're trying to squeeze a quick exit fee from you before they abandon the operation. Can we trace them? I asked. The letter is physical, so no digital footprint there unless we check the lobby cameras for the delivery guy, Mark said, setting up his laptop on my dining table. But they want Bitcoin. Did they include a wallet address? On the back. I turned the paper over. There was a QR code. Mark scanned it. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Okay, checking the blockchain ledger. This wallet is active. It has inflows from... Wow. Look at this. He turned the screen to me. Dozens of transactions. $5,000 here, $10,000 there. This isn't just a guy in a basement. This is a hub. But who is he? The blockchain is anonymous, Mom. But, Mark smiled, a sharp, dangerous smile. People are stupid. Eventually, they have to convert that crypto into fiat currency, dollars, to buy things like cars or condos. They use an off-ramp exchange. And we can track that? I can if I trick him into revealing his IP address while he's logged into his wallet. We need to send him a link. Something he has to click. I thought about Gary. I thought about the lithium deal. Greed, I said. Gary was greedy. Coach K is greedy too. He thinks I have $200,000 ready to invest. Exactly, Mark nodded. We bait him. We tell him you want to pay the $50K cancellation fee, but you don't know how to use Bitcoin. You need him to open a secure payment portal. No, I corrected him. That's too weak. He'll just send a tutorial. We need to make him panic. I formulated a plan. A risky one. We tell him that I already sent the $200,000 to Gary's account right before he was arrested, and that the money is now stuck in a frozen corporate account. Mark raised an eyebrow. Go on. I tell him I want to release the money to him because I don't want the FBI to investigate me for money laundering. I tell him I need him to sign a beneficiary release form so the bank can divert the funds to his wallet. A document, Mark said, catching on. We send him a PDF to sign, but the PDF has a canary token embedded in it. A what? A digital tracker. As soon as he opens the PDF to sign it, it pings back his exact location, his device ID, and his real IP address. No VPN can hide it if the document executes a script locally. It was the digital version of the die pack in a bank robbery bag. I sat down at the computer. I drafted the email to the address Gary had used for Titanium Holdings, which we assumed Coach K monitored. Subject, urgent, $200,000 wire release. To Titanium Holdings, Mahabharata Coach K. From Diane, last name. You win. I saw the note about Mark. Please, leave my son alone. I tried to pay Gary the $200,000 investment on Friday. The wire was initiated before he was arrested. My bank says the funds are now in suspense because the beneficiary account is frozen. I don't want the police looking into my finances. I want to release the funds to you immediately so this goes away. Please sign the attached Chase Bank third-party release form so I can divert the $200K to your crypto wallet. Once signed, the bank releases the funds in 1 hour. I attached the weaponized PDF file named Chase Wire Release, Form V2 PDF. I hit send. We sat in silence, watching Mark's screen. The canary token dashboard was empty. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes. Then, a notification sound. Ping. Alert. Document opened. Location detected. I leaned in. Is it Nigeria? Is it Russia? Mark zoomed in on the map. No, Mark whispered. It's the penthouse of the Marina City Towers, the corncob buildings downtown. He was 3 miles away. I know that building, I said. It has high security. We can't just knock on the door. We don't have to, Mark said. Now that I have his IP, I can cross-reference it with the leaked databases of user registrations. Mark ran a script. He matched the IP address from the luxury condo to a username on a popular car enthusiast forum. User, Kev the King. Real name, Kevin O'Connor. Kevin O'Connor, I repeated. The name sounded familiar. I pulled up my old Rolodex, my digital contacts from my CFO days. I searched the name. Nothing. Then I searched the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission database for barred brokers. There he was, Kevin O'Connor, former commodities trader. Barred from the industry in 2018 for churning, excessive trading to generate commissions, and defrauding elderly clients. He wasn't a criminal mastermind. He was a disgraced broker running a boiler room from his living room. We have him, Mark said. I can send this to the FBI. The FBI will take months to build a case, I said. He threatened you today. I want him stopped today. What do you want to do? He wants a signature? I'll give him a signature. I looked at the reply that just came in from Kevin Coach K received. I signed the document. Send the funds to this wallet address immediately or the deal is off. He had opened the trap, signed the fake document, and sent it back. He was arrogant. He thought he had just bullied a grandmother into handing over $200,000. Mark, I said. Did he sign it digitally? Yes, look. Mark opened the returned PDF. Kevin had scribbled a signature using a stylus. Good, I said. Now we have proof of him claiming ownership of the $200,000 wire, which doesn't exist. He just admitted to attempted wire fraud in writing. I stood up. Grab your coat, Mark. We're going to the Marina City Towers. Mom, are you crazy? He's dangerous. He's a coward who hires people like Gary to do his dirty work, I said, grabbing my purse. And we aren't going alone. I still have friends in high places. I called Detective Harris. He was the head of the Financial Crimes Unit for CPD. We had worked together years ago when an employee at my firm embezzled funds. Diane? He answered. It's been years. Harris, I have a barred SEC broker running a romance scam ring out of a penthouse in Marina City. I have his IP, his real name, and a document where he attempts to claim $200,000 in fraudulent funds. And he just threatened my son's life. Send me the package, Harris said immediately. I'll meet you in the lobby. An hour later, I stood in the lobby of the famous Marina City Towers. Detective Harris and 4 uniformed officers were with me. We went up to the 45th floor. Harris knocked on the door. Police! Open up! There was shuffling inside, the sound of a shredder running. Breaching! Harris signaled. They kicked the door in. What I saw inside wasn't just a scammer's den. It was a factory of heartbreak. The apartment smelled of ozone and panic. The shredder in the corner was jammed, overflowing with strips of paper. As the officers cleared the room, shouting, "Clear, clear!" I walked in behind Detective Harris. It was a penthouse with a view of the Chicago River, but the luxury was just a shell. The living room had been converted into a command center. There were 4 workstations set up on folding tables, laptops, rows of cheap burner phones plugged into charging hubs, and headsets. But what chilled me to the bone were the whiteboards. They covered the entire east wall, columns of names written in dry erase marker. The widow, Seattle. The nurse, Austin. The CFO, Chicago. My name was there. Underneath it, written in red, status, difficult. Net worth, high. Strategy, Threaten, son. My God, Mark whispered, standing beside me. This isn't a scam. It's a corporation. In the center of the room, held down by two officers, was Kevin O'Connor. He wasn't the shadowy Coach K anymore. He was a balding man in a silk bathrobe, looking furious and terrified. "You can't do this!" Kevin shouted, spitting on the hardwood floor. "I have rights! Get out of my house!" Detective Harris walked up to him holding the beneficiary release form Kevin had signed digitally just an hour ago. "You waived your rights when you signed a fraudulent document to claim fictitious funds, Kevin. And when you sent a threat to this young man." Harris pointed at Mark. Kevin looked at Mark. Then he looked at me. His eyes narrowed. Recognition dawned. "Diane," he sneered. "You think you're smart? You're just a lonely old lady who couldn't keep a man." It was a low blow. He was trying to hurt me one last time. I walked up to him slowly, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor with a deliberate, rhythmic cadence that cut through the chaos of the police raid. The room smelled of stale coffee, overheating server racks, and the sour, metallic scent of fear. Kevin O'Connor, the man who called himself Coach K, was on his knees. Two officers held him by the shoulders, but he wasn't looking at them. He was staring up at me. His silk bathrobe was torn at the shoulder, revealing pale, sweaty skin. His eyes were wide, darting back and forth, trying to process how his untouchable empire in the sky had collapsed in less than 10 minutes. He looked at me, and for a split second, the fear in his eyes hardened back into that familiar, sneering arrogance. Even in handcuffs, he couldn't help but try to assert dominance. It was a reflex, a muscle memory honed by years of manipulating women he viewed as beneath him. "You think you've won, Diane?" he hissed, spittle flying from his lips. "You're nothing. Just another lonely, dried-up widow with too much money and nobody to spend it on. You think the police scare me? I'll be out on bail by morning. I have lawyers who cost more than your life savings." He was trying to hurt me. He was trying to find that one insecurity, my age, my loneliness, and twist the knife. But he made a miscalculation. He was talking to the Diane who sat alone in a gas station feeling foolish. He wasn't talking to that woman anymore. He was talking to the Diane who had stared down hostile boardrooms during the 2008 financial crisis. I stepped closer, invading his personal space until I was inches from his face. I could smell the expensive cologne he wore, probably bought with stolen money, masking the scent of his panic. I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I lowered my voice to the cold, flat register I used when firing incompetent executives. "You're making a fundamental error, Kevin," I said softly. "You confused lonely with stupid, and that is a very expensive mistake." He blinked, taken aback by my lack of emotion. "I am smart, Kevin," I continued, holding his gaze. "I spent 35 years analyzing risk. I've audited companies that tried to hide millions in offshore shell accounts. I've spotted discrepancies in ledgers that were thousands of pages long. You thought you were hunting a sheep? No, you were trying to audit a shark. I'm a businessman," he shouted, straining against the cuffs. "I run an operation." "A business?" I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Let's look at your balance sheet. You have zero legitimate revenue. Your operational costs are high. And your risk exposure? It just hit 100%. I leaned in, my voice dropping to a whisper that only he could hear. "I'm a CFO, Kevin. And do you know what the first rule of finance is?" He stared at me, breathing heavily, his chest heaving under the silk robe. The defiance was starting to crack. He didn't answer. "Never invest in a liability." I enunciated every syllable. "A liability is something that drains value. Something that offers no return. Something toxic." I stood up straight, towering over him. "And you? You aren't an asset. You aren't a tycoon. You're a liability. You're bad debt. And as of this moment, you're delisted." The color drained from his face. The financial metaphor hit him harder than an insult. I had stripped away his self-image. He wasn't a mastermind. He was a failed investment. "Get him out of here," Detective Harris ordered, stepping forward. The officers hauled him to his feet. Kevin stumbled, his knees weak. As they began to drag him toward the door, he twisted his neck, trying to look back at the room. They dragged him past the east wall. The war room wall. For the first time, I got a good look at the whiteboards. They were covered in names, dozens of them. The architect, New York. The professor, Boston. The grandmother, Miami. Next to each name were notes. Horrible, clinical notes. Vulnerable. Husband died recently. Kids don't visit. Desperate. It was a factory of heartbreak. He had industrialized sorrow. Kevin saw me looking at the board. He saw the disgust on my face. But then, his eyes locked onto something else. On the main table, amidst the tangle of cables and burner phones, sat a row of small silver USB drives and a hardware crypto wallet, a Ledger Nano X. Realization struck him like a physical blow. That wasn't just hardware. That was his retirement. That was the millions he had siphoned from women like me, converted into Bitcoin and Ethereum, hidden away in cold storage. He didn't scream about his rights. He didn't scream about his lawyer. He screamed about the money. "My hard drives," he shrieked, his voice cracking into a high-pitched wail of pure desperation. He thrashed against the officers, trying to lunge back toward the table. "Don't touch the hard drives. You can't take them. My keys are in there. Those are private keys." It was the sound of a drowning man watching his life raft drift away. "That's my property," he yelled, tears finally streaming down his face. "You don't understand. That's everything I have." My son, Mark, was standing by the table. He had been silent until now, typing rapidly on his own laptop, bypassing the security of the local network. Mark stopped typing. He looked at the screaming man. He looked at the Ledger wallet. Mark laughed. It wasn't a cruel laugh, but a confident one. The laugh of a technician who knows exactly how the machine works. He stepped over a tangle of Ethernet cables and picked up the small device with a gloved hand, holding it up like a trophy. "Your keys?" Mark asked, his tone mocking. "You mean the private keys to the wallet address ending in X9J? The one you used to launder the money from the Titanium Holdings LLC? Kevin went silent. He stared at Mark in horror. "Don't worry, Kevin," Mark said, tossing the device lightly in the air and catching it. "We'll find your crypto keys. The FBI has very good brute force software for guys like you. But honestly, you used a weak seed phrase. I can probably crack this before you get booked at the station." Mark looked him dead in the eye. "And we'll make sure every single cent goes back to the victims. The widow in Seattle? She's getting a refund. The nurse in Austin? Her mortgage is getting paid off." Kevin slumped in the officer's grip. His legs gave out. The arrogance was gone. The money was gone. The game was over. He let out a low moan, a sound of total defeat, as they dragged him out into the hallway and toward the awaiting elevator. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the cooling fans in the computers. I looked at Mark. He smiled at me. I looked at Detective Harris, who was busy tagging the whiteboards as evidence. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying since that night at the gas station. It wasn't just relief. It was a deep, cleansing sense of order being restored. The balance sheet was finally corrected. That moment when the predator realizes he's lost not just his freedom, but the money he stole. That is priceless. If you felt cleansed watching this empire of lies crumble, comment "Justice" down below. The aftermath was extensive. The raid on Kevin's apartment yielded terabytes of data. The police found the scripts, the fake banking templates, and the Prestige Exotics rental logs. It turned out Gary wasn't the only Richard. Kevin had a stable of men, actors, addicts, debtors, whom he dressed up in rented suits and sent out to hunt women like me. Because of the evidence Mark and I provided, the tracked IP, the digital signature, the threat letter, the district attorney built a RICO case, racketeer-influenced and corrupt organizations. They weren't just charged with fraud. They were charged as a criminal enterprise. Kevin, Coach K. O'Connor, was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Gary Miller took a plea deal and got 4 years, plus probation. I recovered my dignity. I didn't lose $200,000. I didn't lose $50,000. I lost exactly $680. The dinner, the gas, the small expenses. A small price to pay for a masterclass in deception, but I gained something much more valuable. 3 months later, I was sitting in a conference room at the Chicago Public Library. The room was packed. 50 women, all over the age of 50, sat in folding chairs. I stood at the podium. Behind me, a slide projected on the screen. Heart and wallet, protecting your assets in modern dating. "Good evening," I said into the microphone. "My name is Diane. I used to manage billion-dollar portfolios, and 6 months ago, I almost gave $200,000 to a man who couldn't afford gas." Laughter rippled through the conference room. It wasn't a loud, boisterous laugh. It was a nervous, fragile sound. The sound of tension breaking. It was the sound of 50 women who had been holding their breath for months, finally realizing they weren't the only ones who had almost wired their savings to a ghost. I adjusted the microphone, feeling the cool metal under my fingers. I wasn't just Diane the retiree anymore. I was Diane the CFO again, leading a board meeting. But the stakes here were higher than any stock price. "We are raised on fairy tales," I continued, making eye contact with a woman in the front row who was twisting a tissue in her hands. "We are told that love is blind, that love conquers all, that we shouldn't care about material things." I paused, letting the silence settle in the room. "But in the year 2024, ladies, love might be blind, but your bank account shouldn't be. Your portfolio needs 20/20 vision. Tonight, we are going to do something unromantic. We are going to learn how to audit a romance." I glanced at the back of the room. Mark was leaning against the wall, illuminated by the glow of the projector. He wasn't just my son today. He was my partner in this initiative. He had spent the last week helping me design the cybersecurity protocols for the workshop. How to spot a deepfake, how to trace an email header, how to lock down a credit file. He gave me a subtle thumbs up, a silent signal. "You got this, Mom." I looked back at the women. I really looked at them. I saw a woman in a tailored blazer who looked like she ran a law firm. I saw a woman with calloused hands who looked like she had built a business from the ground up. But behind their professional facades, I saw the cracks. I saw fear in some eyes, the terror that they were one click away from ruin. I saw shame in others, that hot, heavy shame that burns in your gut and keeps you awake at 3 a.m. I recognized that look. It was the exact same look I had on my face while sitting in the passenger seat of a rented Bentley at a dirty gas station, realizing I had been played for a fool over a tank of premium fuel. I stepped out from behind the podium. I wanted nothing between me and them. "I know what you tell yourselves," I said, my voice dropping to a compassionate, intimate register. "You look in the mirror and you say, 'How could I be so stupid? I'm an educated woman. I should have known better.'" Heads nodded. A few stifled sobs broke out. "Stop it," I said firmly. "You are not foolish." I walked to the edge of the stage. Scammers don't hunt foolish people. They don't waste time on people who have nothing to lose. They hunt the best. They hunt the successful. They hunt women who have managed careers, raised families, and built wealth. I swept my hand across the room, acknowledging every single one of them. You are targets because you are valuable. You are targets because you built a life worth stealing. That is not a flaw. That is a testament to your success. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Backs straightened. The shame began to evaporate, replaced by a spark of indignation. "You earned that life," I said, my voice rising with conviction. "And no man with a fake profile picture and a rented suit has the right to take it from you. So tonight, we stop being victims. We start being auditors. Now, let's learn how to defend it." I drove home that night in my own car, a reliable Lexus, fully paid off. I stopped at a gas station, the same one off I-90 where it all started. It was raining. The neon lights flickered. I got out and pumped my own gas. The total came to $65 hours. I pulled out my credit card, my real Amex. It worked perfectly. I bought a coffee inside. I paid for it myself. I sat in my car for a moment, watching the rain streak the windshield. I thought about Gary, shivering in a cell. I thought about Kevin, stripped of his penthouse. I took a sip of coffee. It tasted better than any champagne Richard had ever ordered. I started the engine. The sound was smooth, real, and mine. Keep the change, I whispered to the empty seat beside me, and I drove home. You think they are the only ones? The wolves are everywhere. But now, the sheep have fangs. Real life is like this, full of wolves in sheep's clothing, but also women who learn to bite back. Because you watched until here, I know you don't want to be the next victim. So you need to do 3 things. First, leave a powerful like. The YouTube algorithm needs to know that we want to see scammers fail. Help this message reach those who need it. Second, subscribe and hit the bell. You guarantee a new story every week right in your feed. Here we bring the raw truth about relationships and money. Third, go down to the comments and tell us, have you ever had a boyfriend who always forgot his wallet? Has your intuition ever saved you? Let's build a warning community here. Remember, 87% of people watch and forget to subscribe. Don't be that person. Knowledge is your best defense. Click subscribe now, a big hug, and see you at the next audit.